So I'm going to start off this one with a little question for you, really. These are not in standard form. I want you to pause the video and have a little think about, see if you can remember or work out how you would put them into standard form. What would they look like? Is there a little trick to it? Is there something to remember? Yeah, so pause the video, and then once you've had a go and possibly written them down, unpause it and let's see if we agree. So, video is unpaused. Right, let's have a look. So, what I would do here. Firstly, we know that the decimal part needs to really be 3.65 because you can only have one digit in front of the decimal point. And then I think, well, what's happened to my number? My number has shifted one place smaller. So what happens to my power? It goes one place bigger. So instead of being 4, it goes up to 5. Okay? So as one gets bigger, the other gets smaller. And they do the opposite of each other every time. So this one would be 4.67 times by 10 to the power of, well, this number's got one place bigger, so my number's going to get one smaller, to 6. What about this one? Well, we know it should be 8.93, not 893. And my power of 10. So my number has got 2 places smaller, which means this number needs to get 2 places bigger. Now, of course, if you think about our number line, if there's 0, there's -3. If we're getting bigger, we're always going this way. I'm going to add 2 to it, so I'm going to end up at -1. And this one, lastly, then, I've got 3.2 times by 10 to the power of, well, this number's got 2 places bigger, which means my number needs to get 2 places smaller. There's 0, there's -5 on my timeline. I've got to get 2 places smaller. If we're getting smaller, we're always going that way. So that will be -7. Okay, so they do opposites, and that's going to possibly be important for some of the work today. Yep, that's going to be useful because we're going to multiply and divide some standard form today. So let's have a little look at what we've got here. We've got two numbers, 3 times 10 to the power of 4 and 2 times 10 to the power of 3. And I've put them in brackets to show that that's one number, that over there is another number. And of course, in between, we've got a little time sign. We're going to times the two numbers together. Okay, now there's a little trick to this. If you notice, if we ignored the brackets, because we don't actually need the brackets in a way, they're just to show that they're separate numbers, I would just have 4 things that are multiplied together. And we can reorder the elements, because if you've got things multiplied together, it doesn't matter what order you do it in. You know, 3 times 2 is the same as 2 times 3. So I'm actually going to take the ordinary numbers here, and I'm going to put them together and multiply those together first. Right? So 3 times 2 is 6. All right? So I've dealt with those numbers. So I've kind of, I've used that, and I've used that. And then I'm going to look at the powers of 10, and I'm going to put those together. So 10 to the power of 4 times 10 to the power of 3. Now, if you remember from your index laws, if we're multiplying, we just add the two powers together. So I'm going to do 4 plus 3 to get 10 to the power of 7. And we've actually already answered our question. We've got 6 times 10 to the power of 7. You should always do a little check that it's in standard form. And yes, it is, because there's a single digit there. It's not 2 digits. And so it's done. So, what did we do here? We just took the two ordinary numbers, the two decimal parts of our standard form numbers, and multiplied those together. And then we took the two powers of 10, and because we're multiplying, we add the two powers together. Here's another example. 5 times 10 to the power of 9 times 4.3 times 10 to the power of 5. Right, firstly, reorder the elements. We're going to do 5 times by the 4.3. And you can do that in a calculator, that's fine, or you could do some column multiplication or something. But we end up with 21.5. So we've multiplied the two decimal bits together. Then I'm going to do my two powers of 10. And 10 to the power of 9 times 10 to the power of 5. Because it's multiplied, I add the two powers together. to get 10 to the power of 14. But as I said before, you need to do a little check. Is it in standard form? No, it's not. So we need to adjust this number. So we go from 21.5 down to 2. Oh, that should be 2.15, shouldn't it? Someone's made a mistake in making their PowerPoint. I'm not going to say who that is. So 2.15 times by 10 to the power of 15, because this number's got one place smaller. So this one has to get one number bigger. Okay, 2.15 times 10 to the power of 15. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to speed it up a bit. I'm going to do what I'd expect you to do first of all, which is I want you to do 2.1 times by the 4. So we're going to multiply the two decimal parts together. And then we're going to do 10 to the power of 5 times by 10 to the power of 3. We're going to multiply those bits together. So 2.1 times by 4 is 8.4 times by, and because we're multiplying, we're going to add the 2 powers of 10, so 10 to the power of 8. Is it in standard form, 8.4? Yes, it is. Brilliant. Okay, next one. 5.3, so we're going to multiply the two decimal parts together first, times by 7.2, and then we're going to have the 2 powers of 10, 10 to the power of 6, 10 to the power of 8. Now I'm not sure what 5.3 times 7.2 is, so I'm going to use a calculator for that, which is 38.16, so 38.16 times by, and because we're multiplying, we add our two powers together. 6 plus 8 is 14. Have a little check. Is it in standard form? No, it's not. So I need to adjust it. 3.816. Remember, it's the same digits, just these have been moved one place smaller, which means my power of 10 needs to compensate by getting one digit bigger, or one number bigger. So 10 to the power of 15. 3.816 times 10 to the power of 15. Right, I want you to pause the video. I want you to then work out, multiply these two numbers together, see what the answer is, and then come back and see if we agree. So pause the video now. Right, we've unpaused. Hopefully you've got some answers here. We've got 7 times by the 5, and then times by 10 to the power of 4, times by 10 to the power of 7. Because it's all multiplied, we can move it into a different order. 7 times 5 is 35. And because we're multiplying, we add our two powers together. The 4 and the 7 makes 11. Is it in standard form? No, it's not, is it? So we need to adjust it. So we make it 3.5. But that number has got one place smaller, which means my number needs to get one bigger. Does the opposite. 3.5 times 10 to the 12. This one, we got 3.7 times by 4.2 times by 10 to the power of 5 times by 10 to the power of 6. Okay, well, I'm going to use a calculator for the first part. So 3.7 times by 4.2 is 15.54. And because we're multiplying, we can add our powers together. 5 plus 6 makes 11. Now my number's not in standard form, so I'm going to adjust it to be smaller again. 1.554, same digits, just one place smaller. Because that's got one place smaller, my number needs to get one bigger. 12. So 1.554 times 10 to the power of 12. So that's multiplying. Let's have a little look at dividing then. Now dividing is very similar, but I would suggest we're going to write this in a slightly different way. I'm actually going to write it as a fraction because that's dividing. So 14 times by 10 to the power of 7 all over 2 times by 10 to the power of 3. We do a similar thing here. We deal with the decimal parts first and then we deal with the powers. And we deal with the decimal part by doing that number divided by the bottom number. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then we look at the powers. And because we're dividing, our index laws, remember, say that we take away the powers. So we do 7, take away 3, leaves 4. So it's 7 times 10 to the power of 4. So you divide the decimal parts first, and then you subtract your powers. The first one, take away the second one. Is it in standard form? Always check. Yes, it is, because there's only one digit there. So we're done. Let's try another one. Again, I like to write it as a fraction because I think it makes it a bit clearer as to what the process is that we're doing. And 6 times 10 to the 12 divided by 12 times 10 to the power of, that's supposed to be a 5. Honest. Right, so we do 6 divided by 12. Now if you do 6 divided by 12, check it on a calculator if you don't believe me, it actually comes out as 0.5 because it's the same as a half. And then we're going to subtract our powers. We do 12, take away the 5, leave 7. So it's 10 to the power of 7. Quick check, is it in standard form? No, it's not. So we need to adjust it. So we're going to make that one place bigger. So it's 5 times by 10. Now because this one's got one bigger, our 7 needs to get one smaller. So it goes down to a 6. It's now in standard form. All good. Okay, so divide the decimal parts first, and then because we're dividing, we can subtract our powers. Oh, we've got one more. Ah, brilliant. Oh, I'm so excited. I didn't know we had one more. 12.8 times by 10 to the power of, come on computer, you seem to be going a bit slow, 10 divided by 2.5 times by 10 to the power of -4. Okay, what are we going to do? We are going to do some division here. So remember, we're dividing the decimals first. So it's 12.8 divided by the 2.5. The screen just suddenly got brighter because my assistant just plugged in my computer to stop it running out of battery. So 12.8 divided by 2.5 is 5.12. 0.12 times by 10 to the power of. Now here I need to subtract my powers, so I'm going to do 10, take away the second power, which is -4. But look, we've got a double negative here. We're taking away a negative. That's going to turn into a positive, because when we take away a negative, it turns into a positive. So it's 10 plus 4, which is 14. So watch out for those negative powers. Remember to just use your ordinary rules about the signs there. If the signs are the same, it's positive. If the signs are opposite, so plus and minus, it becomes a minus. It's now in standard. It is in standard form, sorry, already. So job done. So divide the decimal parts and then subtract the powers. Okay, time to pause the video so you can do some work. There's 3 questions for you to do. I want you to do them, and then you can unpause the video and see if we agree. So off you go. And we have unpaused the video, which if you just listen to that straight through, makes me sound like I'm slightly insane. Right, what have we got? 12 times by 10 to the power of 8, all over 3 times by 10 to the power of 5. We're going to divide the decimals, so 12 divided by 3 is 4. And because we're dividing, we can subtract our powers, so 8 take away 5 leaves 3. It's in standard form. Happy days. Well done if you got that one right. 1.12 times by 10 to the power of 11. And 4 times by 10 to the power of 6. Okay, so we're going to divide the decimals. Now I'm going to use a calculator here. 1.12 divided by 4 is 0.28. 0.28 times by, and we're going to subtract our powers. So 11, take away the 6, leaves 5. So 10 to the power of 5. It's not in standard form, so I need to adjust it. So it's going to turn into 2.8. But because that's got one place bigger, I need to compensate. So I'm going to make the 5 one digit smaller. Not one, you know what I mean. One number lower. So 4. And the last one then, we've got some negative powers coming up here. 4.56 times by 10 to the power of 14, all divided by 8 times by 10 to the power of -3. So we're going to take them away. So, divide first. 4.56 divided by 8 gives you 0.57 times by, and we've got some negative power, so we're going to be careful. We've got 14. We're going to take away the other power, which is -3. Because we're taking away a negative, the two signs means it turns into a positive. So 14 plus 3 is 17. But our number is still not in standard form, so we need to adjust it. 5.7 times by 10 to the power of, well, this number has got one place bigger, so my 17 is going to get one smaller to go down to 16. Good stuff. So I'm going to get a little tick on there, a little tick on there. Happy days. What do we want you to do now? Well, now I want you to go to the link that's in the Show My Homework post, or if you've lost it, then this little tiny URL, if you type that in, it should take you there, but just use the link in the homework. You do the question, so figure out what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is, but let's say it's 7.2, who knows, times by 10 to the power of 12t. Whatever you think it is, you type it in the box there, and it says if you want to do standard form, you want to write some powers, you write your first number, so it's saying it's just calling it A, so that'd be my 7.2, and then you put an X, I believe, for the times, and you write 10, and then this little up arrow for where the power goes, you put the up arrow, and then you put whatever the power is. In this case, it was 12. I'm just going to put N there instead. All right, so that's how you put it in. That tells you. Once you're done, you click on check your answers and it will tell you what you've done. If you make a mistake or you just want to redo it because you think you've not done very well, you can click on new worksheet and it will give you a whole new worksheet. But please do spend a bit of time on trying to get those right. It's a good skill to have and some good marks in the exam. Okay, so good luck.